I just got the alert too. All right. Let's see. Do you see anything on your, what is it, DML,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I just got it.
The DML? Mm-hmm. DML 10. All right, we're going to let the audience build up here a little bit. From what we know, we're live. And we have another really hard-hitting, good show for you. And there we go. First one is Maggie Watt from Idaho. Hey, Maggie. You know, Idaho is one of the states that I've never been to yet. All right, it looks like our audience is starting to build up. And we will give everybody a couple of seconds here to get in. And we have a, what I think is going to be another good show for you today. I think yesterday was a good show. We got a lot of compliments from it. And in case you don't notice, what has been happening with the walk-in talks is they're better and more highly produced. Tim and Ashley, I'll kind of give you, I'll tell you what we do, right, while we're waiting for the audience to build up, because we have a lot of great stuff to talk about today. What we do is we get here every morning, and typically, I'm here first with Ashley and my son, and right after me, Harlan and Tim arrive. Today was different. Harlan was first. Traffic was horrible getting here. But anyway, we get here, and we have an editorial meeting. And my son, who has already been running the website for about an hour and a half, understands what's really hot, what people are enjoying, what they're sharing, what the big stories of the day are. So we sort of see that, and then Harlan and I sit down, and we sit down with the whole team here, and we discuss which topics we should cover, what should be first, what should be second, what should be third. And after we do that, Harlan has this whole chart, and we discuss what it is that we're going to talk about in terms of just the topic itself. I don't know what he's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. We don't know where we stand on things. We try to keep it original in that sense. But we come up with video clips for Tim. We come up with charts for Ashley. And then my son is continuing to post things, and it all sort of comes together. We come down here a few minutes before we're supposed to start, and before you know it, we're scrambling the last second to do audio tests and to sit here and to fill our glasses with water or coffee, or sometimes periodically you put vodka in your,
that is fake news.
Whenever he has anti-Trump statements, there's vodka in there.
I don't know.
That's why we blame it on the vodka.
I don't know.
All right, Mother Russia. All right, Mother Russia. There's vodka in there. You drink the vodka, son, and you're young in the morning. Come on.
I don't know.
My father used to say, "Put hair on your chest."
Yeah.
So anyway. Anyhow, yeah, you could see how much vodka I've drank.
Oh, God.
You know, as a complete side note, before we get into talking about some of this other stuff, great story. I have to tell you this story. I have to share this story. So yesterday, we're in here. My son, Ashley, and myself, we're here first. We got here very early. We left the house very early. It's a 2-hour ride for us. We got here in an hour and 40 minutes. So we're hanging out. Harlan comes in, and we're already getting ready for the day. And Harlan sits down, and for whatever reason, says, you know, if you run for office, we're not going to be able to use the Facebook page like we use it today for the business. So I'm like, what are you worried about? I said, you know, what are you talking about? Well, you know, we got to get you to run for governor. I said, I'm not going to run for New York State governor. There's no way I could win. I went, well, yeah, we'll move you somewhere else. So Harlan's got me moving. We're discussing Tennessee, West Virginia, Arizona. He's got me moving. So we went home last night, and the whole Lynch family sat down. We're like, is Harlan setting up a coup? Is he trying to rid of me? And then Mary's like, no, I think he's trying to make sure that he would be involved. Oh, it was hysterical. Anyway, so Harlan has me running for office. So today, you know, we were talking about yesterday. I said Merkel would be European in a pants, and now here I am showing my chest hairs. Yeah. And Harlan said to me this morning, he's like, you know, you're gonna make it very difficult for me to get you elected. Sorry, Harlan. Yeah. Anyway, some people call it personality.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's get into the rock. It seems like we've got our crowd built up here. Okay. First and foremost, let me go down the rundown of what we'll be discussing here today, so this way you know when it is you want to pop in or pop out if you're not going to stay with us the whole time. Today's show, we're going to be covering Kathy Griffin. that classless piece of you-know-what who put up a picture of herself holding a replica of the decapitated, bloodied head of President Trump. We're going to discuss that at length. We're also going to be discussing Sean Hannity. I told you yesterday that I had some interactions with him over the weekend, and yesterday he came out and he put out a very bold statement, which I was very, very pleased to hear. We're going to discuss that. We're going to then go into Sean Spicer and what happened yesterday after 2 weeks of not having any press briefings, what took place during that press briefing, and really how it is that this whole fake news, and you know how much I hate that topic, fake news and the war of media and Trump is only going to get worse. Yesterday was a great example of that. We're then going to move into some stories about Chelsea Clinton and a little back and forth she's having with the president from the Philippines. We're going to go over the Paris Agreement. We're going to go over the terror attack in Kabul and yesterday's ICBM test. We're going to do it in that order for those of you who are curious. So without further delay, let's start off, Ashley and Tim, by putting up the despicable, absolutely despicable picture from Kathy Griffin yesterday. Can we put that up? There we go. Hey, Tim, do me a favor. Turn the comments off on the big screen so this way I can see everything. Thank you. So there you go. So what we have there, leave the picture up there for a second. We have Kathy Griffin, who has a face only a mother can love. And she's holding a replica of Donald Trump, President Trump's head, all bloodied and chopped off. It was a classless, tasteless move that we are seeing all too often from the left. They continue to push and push the envelope. They do so knowing that they have no price to pay. There are no repercussions. There is never anything that is ever done in the same way that something is done, let's say, to a conservative. I mean, we got somebody we're going to be covering like Sean Hannity, who's simply asking a legitimate question about the death, the very curious death of a DNC staffer. He is now criticized as being fake news and a conspiracy theorist. They're calling for his advertisers to be pulled, and yet this kind of crap, put that picture up, this kind of crap is shown, and what is going to even happen to this woman, if anything, is probably nil. We had just a few weeks ago, late night host Stephen Colbert saying that the President of the United States, his mouth is a holster for the manhood of President Putin. What happened to Colbert? His ratings went up. Nothing happened to him. There is such an unbelievable double standard in this country. Your country, the country that your husbands and wives and fathers and sons and daughters and grandparents fought for. This is what it's turned into. Where if you have values that are deemed conservative, you are bad, you are evil, you need to be censored. If you have values that are liberal and progressive, you are celebrated, you are anointed, you are given everything you need, platforms, everything you need in order to say whatever it is you want that will try to take down this president and will try to make conservatives moot. That is basically what it's come down to. This is what your family fought for. How pathetic is that? Now, you know it's really bad when somebody like Kathy Griffin, who really doesn't care about anything other than herself, gets a tweet from Chelsea liberal Clinton saying, hey, this has gone too far. Do we have her tweet? This is vile and wrong. It is never funny to joke about killing a president. That is from Chelsea Clinton. Now, that's just one example of an ocean of negative comments this loser received from both sides of the aisle. So last night at about 8 o'clock Eastern time, she puts out an apology video which we are going to play for you right now.
I sincerely apologize. I am just now seeing the reaction of these images. I'm a comic. I crossed the line. I moved the line, then I cross it. I went way too far. The image is too disturbing. I understand how it offends people. It wasn't funny. I get it. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career. I will continue. I asked your forgiveness, taking down the image, going to ask the photographer to take down the image, and I beg for your forgiveness. I went too far. I made a mistake, and I was wrong.
Okay, so I just read one of the comments that were coming through here while we were playing that. Last night, we posted that video and said her sincere apology. We were being tongue-in-cheek when we wrote that, all right? It was not a sincere apology. What it was is, I'm going to lose a lot of money apology. And there was one thing missing in that apology, and I tweeted this piece of garbage about it. Put it up. I tweeted, Kathy Griffin, you're classless and your apology falls short because you failed to do one thing, apologize to the president. She apologized to you guys, but she didn't apologize to the person to whom she did that. She didn't apologize to the Trump family or to the Trump children who had to see their father's head chopped off and held. You know who probably didn't think that was too funny? Ha-ha. Was the family of Daniel Pearl, a reporter who had his head chopped off when he was going to the Middle East. Pathetic. The fact that she's even allowed to still have a Twitter account. Milo, remember Milo, the gay conservative who said something tongue-in-cheek against a black actress? He lost his Twitter account. Gone. Because he just wrote something about somebody that was meant to be a joke, but it wasn't taken as being a ha-ha. But then again, the Twitter CEO apologized for his role in getting President Trump elected. So you can bet your buttocks that woman is not going to lose her Twitter account. Oh no. The president this morning put out a tweet about Miss Griffin. Could we have it? Kathy Griffin should be ashamed of herself. My children, especially my 11-year-old son Barron, are having a hard time with this. Sick. Yeah, no doubt they're having a hard time with it. It's hard enough. It's hard enough being the president of the United States who gets blamed for things he hasn't done, who is ridiculed no matter how he shakes or doesn't shake somebody's hand. He's got to now deal, he's got to go into his son and explain why his head's chopped off. Can you imagine? I got an 8-year-old. I can imagine what my daughter would come in and say. She'd say, Daddy, why does everybody hate you? This is what this guy's dealing with. He's trying to make America great again, and meanwhile, they're going to chop his head off and hold it up and ha, 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 ha. Somebody sent me an email, and I responded to it this morning in my I respond to 3 emails that I do every single morning. And in response, what the woman asked me was, DML, can you please start a petition to have Kathy Griffin prosecuted? Here is the sadness in this. Put up the statement, please. I can't remember what college. This is from some law, some professor. Threats knowingly and willfully made against the president, president-elect, vice president, or vice president-elect are a Class E felony under federal law. That includes any threat to take the life of, to kidnap, or to inflict bodily harm upon those officials. Sadly, this was just her being artistic. And so there is no repercussions. This is protected under her free speech. So Harlan, I'd like, Harlan is a Democrat. He's a registered Democrat. He's been a lifelong Democrat. And as he will say to people who say, why are you still a Democrat? He'll say, the party left me, When you see this and you see what has happened to the Democratic Party, what's your take on the whole thing as a whole, as a Democrat?
Well, one is I find the selective outrage of the left to be really exhausting. Like, it's frustrating to me anytime somebody says anything off color or anybody jokes. You remember a few weeks ago they were after Jesse Waters, calling for him to resign because he was talking about, or he made a joke about Ivanka's voice, saying it was very, like, alleging that it was very seductive, but they were saying that he was commenting on something else. And so I find this selective outrage to be really exhausting. But here's what I'll say about Kathy Griffin and Stephen Colbert. When the left attacks people on the right for their commentary and calls for their scalp, basically, for them to be fired, for advertisers to pull their money and stuff, I hate that. I also hate when people do that to Kathy, because I feel like I've got to be consistent. And what she said was absolutely disgusting, repugnant. I'll choose not to support her. I'll choose not to watch any of her comedy specials. But I'm not going to sign a petition to have her fired. I'm not going to try to say that she should be prosecuted. I don't care about Kathy Griffin, you know. And so ultimately, if I'm going to contend that Democrats are overly sensitive to jokes made by Republicans, I've got to say the same in reference to Kathy.
Let's call a spade, though.
Yeah.
If I were, well, I'm not a comedian.
Yeah.
Although I am pretty funny. But if funny looking, if give me somebody who's somewhat funny. You know what? Mm-hmm. Maybe most people don't know this, but Brian Kilmeade from Fox and Friends, a very dear friend of mine. Yeah. Well, he was a stand-up comic. Mm-hmm. He did stand-up before he got into broadcasting. Mm-hmm. If Brian Kilmeade was doing a stand-up mm-hmm. and took a picture of him holding mm-hmm. President Barack Hussein Obama's head, mm-hmm. bloodied and chopped off, mm-hmm. I can assure you that Brian Kilmeade would not be part of the Fox News channel anymore. He would not have a radio show anymore. Nobody would buy or distribute his books.
It's selective outrage, though. I mean, what you're pointing to is the selective outrage of the left. And what I'm saying is that I just refuse to partake in it. Just because the left doesn't mean that the right should do it as well. Is it totally appropriate for the right to point out the hypocrisy of the left and like their selective outrage? Sure. But I'm not interested in going after people to try to ruin their careers. I hear what you're saying. I just don't want to participate in it.
Listen, I'm with you. I have always been I say this to the president almost on a daily basis. Change the narrative. Mm-hmm. And the way that you change the narrative with the left and with the mainstream media is by ignoring them. Mm-hmm. You personalize this in your own life. I mean, seriously, personalize it in your own life. I'll use Mary and I. If Mary and I have a rare argument, and I know she's wrong, and she wants to really fight, I ignore her. I won't answer. And the reason why I do that is because I'm not going to fuel her fire. And eventually what happens is she burns out, mm-hmm. and the argument dies. It's when I go back at her mm-hmm. that it just keeps on going and going and going and going. I fuel that. That's when I come back to Trump's tweets. If he just were to ignore the crap that they do, he doesn't play into it and it doesn't build. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. The best way to punish Kathy Griffin mm-hmm. is to absolutely turn that channel mm-hmm. every time you see her on. Here's the problem, though, Harlan. Here's what the 4,000 people with us are going to say.
Yeah.
I don't watch her to begin with.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Watch her to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, so here's the thing. She has a contract with CNN, does she not?
Yeah, she does.
CNN has a responsibility as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I think they show their real colors mm-hmm. if they don't absolutely terminate the contract with her. Mm-hmm. Does it not show a lot if CNN keeps her on there?
They've said that they are considering it, that they're reviewing her contract with CNN.
Never happen. Will never happen.
Yeah.
They just don't have it in them. They're so far left, they just don't have it in them. Mm-hmm. All right, that said, I want your comments about Kathy Griffin. So do me a favor, because we're going to cover this again at some point, I'm sure, tomorrow. Go to DennisMichaelLynch.com when we're done with the walk and talk here. Go to the Submit News button. Give me your one-liner, one sentence. That's all I want. One sentence about what you think about this woman. And I am going to send my favorite 20 to my letter to the President of the United States. All right? Why we went black there for a second.
Did we lose the camera?
I don't know what we lost, but we're back. It also went black on Facebook. We're back. But anyway, send it to me. Go to DennisMichaelLynch.com, hit the Submit News button. Send me one sentence. If you send me two sentences, I won't look. One sentence In the subject line, I want you to put Kathy, and I am going to take the 20 sentences and send them to the president in my daily letter to the president. Okay? So we're going to do that. Now we want to shift gears here. We're going to start talking about Sean Hannity. Last night, well, let me set this up. For those of you who don't know, Sean Hannity has been under attack, if you will, from the left media. And the reason why he's been, and Democrats, and the reason why he's been under attack is because he feels, like I do and so many other people do, that we have a issue. Oh, am I out on that camera? Oh, I'm on this camera here. Okay. We are having a problem here with camera 2. So anyway, I'll go into this camera. So what happened with Hannity is that Hannity believes that the death of Seth Rich, the DNC staffer who is connected, we think, to WikiLeaks, he thinks that whole murder needs further looking into. I agree with him completely. But others who don't want that to be looked into, they're calling him a conspiracy theorist. And they are making moves for the advertisers that advertise on the Hannity program on Fox News to withdraw their support of that program. And he lost, I think it was 5 or 6 different advertisers, although one did come back. USAA came back. Yeah. But nonetheless, he is being targeted because he simply is asking the tough questions that a person of his stature is supposed to ask. You know, he's an opinionist, but he's a commentator, but he's also has a journalistic side to him, and he wants to get to the truth. And so because he simply asks a question of a case that has so many open holes in it, he is now slammed. Here we got Kathy taking the president's head filled with blood, no problem. But when we've got Mr. Hannity trying to get to the bottom of something, where you'd think that the parents and all Americans would want to know the truth about this. And if the truth is that Clinton and DNC and nobody else had anything to do with it, and we could find the real people who did kill this guy, maybe it is 2 muggers, well, at least we have some answers. He is crucified for this. And so the rumors last week were that either Fox News was going to fire Sean Hannity or that Sean Hannity was going to fire Fox News. I didn't believe either one of those were going to happen, but I'm sure Sean was thinking about it. He was contemplating it. You could sort of see it and feel it in his commentary. You could see it and feel it and read it in his tweets. And by all means, he had every right to feel like that. He had every right to question where it was that he should be resting his hat day in and day out. Last night, he, after a 4-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, to Monday, he came back and he opened up with an opening monologue that was 14 minutes long. We're going to play a little bit of that clip now.
Now, we at this point, are we at a point in this country that I can't ask a question without being called a liar, a conspiracy theorist? You know, and it's also now gone to a whole other level that is very dangerous. Now my character is being assassinated. I'm being lied about, smeared, and slandered. And the worst part is there are many on the left that are now working hard to get me fired, get me off the air. There is now a well-funded, well-orchestrated campaign against me in this particular case to silence me by attacking my advertisers. Now, this is all put together by, in part, Clinton-founded, in part, Soros-funded, in part, group. Now, I want to tell you something. This is not hyperbole. What has been happening to me in the last week is a kill shot. They want the show canceled. They want me off the air. It's also an attempt to silence the Fox News channel and talk radio. Now, this has been a tactic that has been used against many other conservatives in the past with, honestly, a certain degree of success.
Okay, now, that Sean Hannity right there is the Sean Hannity I know. That's the guy who's basically going to tell you, I'm here and I'm going to fight. And that's more or less what he said. Mm-hmm. He said, you know, Fox News is the only guy in the game with a big enough voice, and we're being attacked, and, you know, I'm basically here. That's what he came out and said. Now, for him to get to that place, one of the things he said was that he had, you know, a bunch of support from his fans and supporters who called USAA today, whatever it may be. I went back and forth with Sean in an email exchange, and I'm going to keep, obviously, most of that. Number 2 is working.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go back to number 2. I'm going to keep most of that personal between the two of us. But I will show you an excerpt of a portion of the email that I sent to him, which he came back to me and said he really appreciated it, and he was considering heavily the words that I had shared with him. Can we put up the part of the email? I said, Sean, your voice on TV is very important right now. In fact, I see your influence amid all this BS increasing. I would urge you not to leave voluntarily. The media will spin it to look like you lost the battle. You're a fighter. Remember that. DML. I also reminded him that I put PS. Good things happen to good people, and you're a good guy. So I would like to believe that myself and other people who gave him that sort of support let him sort of go through the motions and come back and say, you know what, screw these guys. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm coming back here and I'm fighting. You know, and that's why I love Hannity. I love Hannity. You know, what's your take on this whole thing?
I'm glad he didn't bow to the pressure. And I'm glad that he didn't. I mean, look, if I were him, I think I'd be pretty mad, not just the left, but to a degree my employer. And sometimes when you're angry like that, it just leads you to say, well, I'm going to take my cards and I'm going to go do this someplace else. And he didn't let that interfere with his decision making, and he made the right choice to stay where he is. And I think that he has an amazing influence there. And he brings up a great point in that clip that we played. When did it become a crime to ask a question? When did it become justification to take someone's job for asking a question? You may not like that question, but he has every right to ask it. And his employers and his viewers demand him to ask these tough questions that nobody else is asking. And so I'm glad that he didn't bow to pressure. It speaks to his strength. You know, that in the face of adversity, he stayed.
It does. It does speak to his strength. And, you know, it's not easy when you're a proud person, like Sean Hannity is a proud person. It's not easy when you feel as if you're being attacked from all ends because you're simply trying to do your job.
Yes.
And so there is that part, especially the Irish part, and I know that part, where it says, you know what, screw you. I don't need you. I don't need this. I'll go play golf. I got all the money in the world. I got my radio show. I'll go do whatever the hell I want to do. I believe he strongly is sitting in that seat because he realizes the sort of thing that I wrote to him in there. Your voice is too important right now. We don't have many voices out there.
Right.
I mean, look, we talk about it all the time here on Facebook, right? We got over 3,000 people. Do you know how many people I get every single day? DML, I can't find you. I can't find you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every single time you turn around, I mean, Facebook now, when somebody tries to share something from the Dennis Michael Lynch page, they make them check in to make sure they're not a robot. And they say, DML, this doesn't happen to me on any other page.
Yeah.
But it happens on ours. You know, so do I think that there is this concerted effort to stop the powerful conservative voices? Absolutely. Absolutely there is. The way that you stop the momentum of the Trump train, the way that you stop the momentum of the conservative message is that you demonetize it. You demonetize it. You take away that money and you demonetize it. I said this prior to O'Reilly being removed. This is the only way they can do it. They can't stop your free speech, but they can stop the ability for you to monetize it. We put up a poll this morning. You know, we love our polls. People love our polls. It's like you start your morning off, you brush your teeth, you go to the bathroom, you have yourself a cup of coffee, and you take a DML poll. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Maybe not in that order. But if you look at this, we ask the question, is Hannity being unfairly attacked by the left? 99.85% said yes, Hannity is a credible guy. I mean, I have run a lot of polls in my day, and that says like 323. I can tell you, let me see right there. We pulled that relatively early. Let me see if I go to that poll right now on the website. I bet you, I wonder if that number has stayed, as I have never, in all the polls we've done, we put this up a couple hours, it's already been shared 1,000 times. View results, it still stayed. We have thousands of people who have taken this poll. Thousands. And it's 99.85%.
Amazing.
That people think he is unfairly attacked. Out of all the polls I've ever done, not a one has been like this. And I will be sending this to Sean. So do me a favor. If you haven't taken the poll yet, go to DennisMichaelLynch.com and you scroll down, you'll find poll. You just type in poll in the search and you'll see this Hannity one. Take it and we'll send it to him tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow's Thursday.
Yes.
Tomorrow I'm actually going in and meeting with Sean's executive producer. So talking about maybe me starting to make appearances on that show. I don't like to do those things anymore, but with Sean, I think I might actually break my own rule. Anyway, we will see. But let's move on. Enough about me. Let's get into Sean Spicer.
Yeah.
So Sean Spicer's gone for 2 weeks, right? No press briefings. Been boring. Right?
I'm sure he's enjoyed it, though.
I'll tell you who else enjoyed it. Like All My Children and all those other different soap operas are like, wait, people aren't checking in anymore. No, Sean Spicer is a real soap opera. I gotta tell you, my cousin is a soap opera star.
No.
Yeah.
What show?
I think she's on All My Children. For those of you who watch daytime television, I think she was Frankie on All My Children. Her name is Elizabeth Hendrickson. She's my cousin. Yeah. So anyway, Sean Spicer gets back into the press briefing yesterday, and the fireworks they just go, and it's all about fake news. So let's play the clip.
Discussion at the G7, and someone from the BBC and ultimately an incoming reporter from the New York Times retweeted that the president was being rude by disrespecting the Italian prime minister. And when in fact you all in every one of the meetings that we sit in watch the president with that one earpiece that's been used by other presidents. The problem is that I think the president, to the question, gets frustrated when he sees fake stories get published, things that aren't based in fact. And a narrative gets pushed.
That's just so.
That's just, well, with all due respect, I think when you see instances like that get perpetrated over and over again, that is frustrating. I think that is troubling. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate
it. Kushner fake news.
Yeah. So what the clip didn't show you there was that a reporter asked him something, and he said something about fake news, and the reporter came back with a sly thing, says, well, give us an example of what fake news is. And then he gave the example of these two tweets put out by the reporters. We have the tweets. Put them up, Ash. We have the tweets? Okay, so you can see the one guy there put a short clip that sums up this G7 summit. Look who has chosen not to hear a translation of his Italian host's speech, and they were referring to Trump. Then this Shane Goldmacher comes in and says, yet another memorable moment for Trump abroad. So, and look at that. The first one was shared 20,000 times, 22,000 likes. I mean, so, tens of thousands of people, Harlan, are getting this fake news, right? And so they ask a question, he gives it to it. And then when Spicer calls it out, the response is, oh, come on, you're making a big thing out of nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, what was missing there is the context. It wasn't like he was going out of his way to complain about this. He was prompted by the press pool, asking for an example of fake news. And absolutely, this is a case of fake news. I mean, if it's not just President Trump. As Sean Spicer laid out, President Barack Obama, President George W. Bush, President Bill Clinton, when they're overseas or they're at the UN and there's someone speaking in a language other than English, they listen to a translation in their ear. And sometimes if they're having a conversation with somebody else or if their attention has been drawn to something else, they pull it out for a minute. Or if there's a problem with it, they pull it out. And so obviously this reporter at the BBC wanted to leverage that to fulfill this left-wing talking point that President Donald Trump has no foreign policy skills and that he's rude And, we saw this with the example that they kept trying to push of President Trump allegedly pushing the Dutch prime minister out of the way, or it was one of these prime ministers out of the way for a photo shoot. So that at every turn, they were trying to drum up some examples, and they were really grasping at straws clearly to try to undermine his time abroad. But getting back to the issue of fake news, I mean, what this comes down to is that you can take any sort of clip or any sort of statement that anyone says. This is how dangerous of a world we live in. You can take any sort of clip, rip it out of context, put it in a 5 or 10 second tweet, and it gets shared and seen by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and it gets pushed by the mainstream media without any consequence. I mean, this is the world we live in. I mean, they can make you say or seem to do anything that they want to do by just ripping it out of the context. And it's not just Russian operatives that do it anymore. It's reporters at the BBC and the New York Times. And it is frustrating. And if I were the President of the United States or working for him, I'd be exhausted by this.
You brought up a really good point. And tomorrow, I just wrote a note to myself. Tomorrow, we're going to play a clip on this show from an appearance I made 3 years ago on the Jon Stewart show, back when he was on Comedy Central. And it was a couple of months after Sean Hannity had me on for an hour about one of my films. And they called me on and they said they wanted to have me on. They took my interview and chopped it up to where not only did they just cut my answer short, but they took answers that I gave to other questions and put it to a different question. So in other words, I say to you, have you ever been to Mexico? And you say,
no.
Well, let me change it. Have you ever been to Italy?
Yes.
Okay. Do you hate Italians?
No.
All right. So what happened was they took the do you hate Italians and took my yes and put it there and made it so this way I hate Italians. And they played this thing. My family was there. We're watching it, because it wasn't live. And I'm sitting there watching what they're doing to me. I wound up getting death threats. I had to go get a lawyer. I wound up getting death threats. I got everything else because of the way that they made me appear.
That is so infuriating. I mean,
Wait. Let me add this in. Let me add this in. My lawyer contacted whoever owns Comedy Central, which is, Viacom, contacted them with screenshots of the threats that I was getting and said, can you please take down this video which you have on the internet, which you have clearly manipulated to put answers into my client's words in his mouth that he did not say. Forget about money. We're talking about the health and wellness of his family, the safety. They came back and said, no, he signed a release form that he would be on.
So, I mean, we saw this with that Katie Couric documentary as well on guns, and where they totally ripped the content and they changed the answers of people that were in the room, part of this panel that she was interviewing of gun owners. It's unbelievable what they're able to get away with. And the only reason those gun owners were able to prove that Katie Couric changed the very context of their interview was because they were separately recording the interview and they put it out on the internet. I mean, there is an important lesson. If you're going behind enemy lines and it's not live, if it's taped, I think you got to record your own. I mean, to protect yourself.
One of the reasons why I don't do the TV thing anymore is simply because of what you're talking about right there. I have told you before that for the 3-minute, 4-minute hit that's there, aside from the fact that you take the entire day to commit to doing a scene, on a news segment, that unless it's a live show, I won't do it.
No.
I will not do it. There is no value to me to put myself into that sort of thing, even to the point of where they'll turn your microphone off or they won't let you finish a statement.
Sure.
One time when I was on MSNBC, we could play that tomorrow as well. MSNBC. Guy I was on with Diaz, Jose, whatever his name, Diaz, asking me a question. I'm giving him an answer about 9/11. I'm about to destroy him. Oh, Dennis, we got to cut to commercial. We got to cut you off there. We'll have you back. If they cut you off, it's just not worth it. You have to really trust who it is that you're going to be
Absolutely.
with. And that's why I say Hannity, Hannity and Fox and Friends, the only two that I would even think about doing it. Fox and Friends is live. Hannity, I know, is not going to do something bad. Aside from that, you're right. You go into one of those things, you record the whole thing. I mean, I would never do it, but because I won't go on those places anymore. I don't need to. But I would, if I did, I would record it on my phone, just like they did. You have to do it. You should trust nobody anymore.
Absolutely.
Trust nobody. You should always take it into mind that no matter what you are doing, you are being recorded. Somewhere, somehow, some way, you are being recorded. You're on a phone call with somebody, you better realize the fact that you're probably being recorded.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I once did that. I had a guy, this is a sub-story. I had a guy, he's a lawyer, and this is relating to something that everybody knows about, but I can't get too deep into it because it's ongoing. I had a lawyer pull BS, and I called that lawyer on BS. And I called him up on the phone, and I was pissed. And I used the F word, and I really ran into him because he was totally BSing. And I called him out on it, and you know how I get if I get like that.
Sure.
You're not going to beat me. I'm going to keep on getting down to you. And he says, I want to let you know I just recorded you. I said, you know what, man? Play it. Put it on the effing internet. Put it on the effing internet if you want to play it. You think I care? I went into this conversation knowing you'd be recording me, you moron.
He didn't tell you at the beginning of the call that he was recording you, though.
He didn't, but he didn't have to because I'm in New York. So as long as one party, there are states to where as long as one party knows that the other party is being recorded, you do not have to say anything. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. New York is one of those states. So if you and I are on the phone right now, right? You're inside, I'm in here. I could record you, not tell you because I am privy to that phone call being recorded. It is completely stupid that we allow that sort of thing to happen.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We've got this. This is a very interesting thing. Very interesting thing. I thought you folks would appreciate this one. We have. Why don't you set this up? Do you want to sell it at the Philippine president thing?
Sure.
Because I've been doing a lot of the talking.
Yeah, absolutely. So the president of the Philippines is Rodrigo Duterte. And he is a little bit he has a big mouth. And he has a potty mouth. And so you'll see in some of the clips that we pull in a minute, or some of the quotes that we put up, we take out some of the words. But he was recently addressing his soldiers, and his soldiers are fighting ISIS. So it's a common enemy that we share with the Philippines. And they have a big problem with radical Islamic terrorism in the Philippines, and so they're taking it head on. He was addressing his soldiers, and he said let's put the quote up. He said, "Just do your work. I will handle the rest. I will be imprisoned for you. If you rape 3 women, I will say that I did it." And so this received international condemnation, Dennis. I mean, not just people here in the States, but around the world are saying, I mean, this guy seems to be tacitly saying that as you're fighting ISIS and you go through, enemy territory, it's okay to rape these women and it's excused.
This guy's a loose cannon with his comments.
He is.
He's
you remember
cannon.
some of the stuff he said about Barack Obama.
I do.
Yeah,
Called him the N-word, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the N-word and an SOB.
SOB, said something about his parents.
His
or
mom.
Yeah, I mean,
he's trash. I mean, this guy's trash.
He's trash.
And so it elicited a response from Chelsea Clinton, and we can put that up here too. Do we have? Yeah, she said, "Not funny ever," and I think she followed this up with another tweet, right? What did she say? Yeah, she followed it up with another tweet, and I'm mentioning this because it invited a response from him. Do we have the other tweet? Yeah, he said, Duarte is a murderous thug with no regard for human rights. It's important to keep pointing that out, and that rape is never a joke. Rodrigo he's asserting, Dennis, that what he was saying was tongue-in-cheek, that he didn't actually mean it. But when you actually look at the clip, when you read the quote, I mean, he's not being ambiguous at all. I mean, it seems as though he's saying that this behavior is okay. And even if it was a joke, her point is this is just something you don't joke about. if he were talking about, my wife and my mom and my sister, I wouldn't think that talking about raping them is very funny.
No, wait a second. Did we actually, because I didn't see it, did we actually put what he said back about President Clinton? Did we show that?
Well, let's put it up.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, all right. Well, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So he said back to Chelsea Clinton, "What was your reaction when your father was effing Monica Lewinsky?"
That's what he said back
that's what he said.
to Chelsea Clinton.
I mean, what all this comes down to is, well, first of all, former President Bill Clinton was never accused of raping Monica Lewinsky. I mean, so these two things are not the same. This guy's just a loose cannon loser. I'm glad that he's fighting ISIS, but I'm not interested in defending or trying to excuse anything that he said here. So.
Well, it's not very presidential. But I do know a few guys and a few ladies who can't stand Bill Clinton, who probably said, I don't have a problem with that statement or whatever it may be. The reason why I picked this thing out here is because when you look at the way that everything is moving, when you look at the way that everything is moving with this fake news and the media and all the tweeting and all the stuff and everything else like that, I'm old school. I'm old school. I don't think the president should tweet. I don't think Chelsea Clinton should be tweeting a response to whatever this guy has to say. And I don't think he should be coming back to it. That I've been saying it. Just let it go. Let it burn out and don't say anything.
Yeah, but didn't you just
Chelsea Clinton, well, hold on. Chelsea Clinton is trying to make herself relevant by means of taking this and pushing it out.
But, I mean, didn't you do the same thing with Kathy Griffin just last night? I mean, if we should just let these... What's the difference?
The President of the United States had his head chopped off and held in blood. He did nothing wrong. He did nothing to entice that sort of thing. Bill Clinton took an intern and took her into the Oval Office and stuck a cigar up her female entryway. I see a big difference there.
Yeah, but Bill Clinton wasn't originally part of this. Duarte made him a part of it. I mean, that was his shot back at Chelsea Clinton. Chelsea Clinton was saying, rape's not funny, I mean, and she's not an elected official. I mean, she's just...
Yeah, but she is the daughter of the elected official.
I don't see anything wrong with what she did. And I appreciate...
No, but she's opening... But listen, this is the point. This is the point.
Okay,
all right, so now I understand where you're coming from. I was a little lost on where you're coming from. By tweeting out against him, she openly opened herself up to take the punch. In the same manner that I openly opened myself up for Griffin to come back and say whatever she wanted to say.
But children aren't responsible for what their parents do. I mean, she's probably incredibly embarrassed. I mean, she was a teenager at the time. Like, mortified. And I mean, look, what Bill Clinton did to Hillary Clinton, we're putting aside what we think about Hillary Clinton. What he did to her and the disrespect he showed her, it's unconscionable. And the embarrassment that
Harlan.
Yeah.
This is why I can't buy into this one.
Why?
I can't buy into this one. Because this guy, Clinton, had a history of treating women despicably. And she, for the desire of power and the desire to be the boss and to be the president one day and to be, the first lady, the secretary of state, her desire to be who she is today allowed her to overlook every single last time he did one of those things. Any other woman would have left him.
And
so what does that say to women?
If Hillary, well, it means that you have children together and you want to keep it going.
So,
but
we didn't have this. This is when you know that we don't discuss.
What I'll say about Hillary
Clinton. Wait,
Clinton.
you're saying Hillary Clinton stayed with Bill Clinton for the sake of Chelsea?
I'm willing to believe that. People have problems in their marriages and they work through it. And yeah, because I think if I were advising Hillary Clinton, She should have played the victim. She should have said, my husband's, is trash. He's cheated on me time and time again. I'm done with this. I'm going to go do my own thing. And she was a relatively popular figure at the time, even though she had some negatives. It's nowhere near what it was today. She could have run for senator from New York without a problem. He didn't even really have to campaign for her the first go around. So she didn't need him to take that next step. She rode with him to the White House, but beyond that, she didn't need him.
I disagree. I disagree.
He did more harm than good in 2008.
Without Bill Clinton, you would have never, ever have heard the name Hillary Clinton.
That's true.
Or Hillary Rodham. I don't think there's a person watching who doesn't know somebody, or maybe even doesn't love somebody, who has been in a divorce. Or who hasn't stayed with somebody for the sake of doing it for the kids. All right? Without getting into too much nitty-gritty, I mean, my parents had, at a point, a very turbulent marriage because of my father, because he drank. And there is a huge part of me that believes my mother tried to keep it together for the sake of her children.
Sure.
At some point, you have to say, in the case like my mother said, get out. Because you realize the fact that that behavior is never going to change, and that behavior staying in place is actually doing worse for the child than it is keeping that person around, so this way the kid has both parents. If you go down the history of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and you look at all the things that he did, I will bet my life on the fact that she didn't stick around for the sake of Chelsea. I'm not saying that Chelsea didn't enter her brain, and the impact not having a dad home would have. But this is a guy who has one claim after the next against him from women who all say basically the same thing. And as far as I'm concerned, he proved that that's the guy he is when he did what he did to Monica Lewinsky. When you are the president of the United States of America, there is no man in the world who has more power than you do.
Sure.
And when you have a young intern like a Monica Lewinsky, all anybody has to do is look at her face back in those old videos, the way she would look up to him. He could have had her do anything. A real man, a real president, a real husband, and a real father would never have touched that girl, let alone stick a cigar up her girlhood. And so, Harlan,
you're talking about Bill Clinton, not about Hillary or Chelsea. I mean,
but we got into a whole other discussion here on the fact that on why Hillary. You said what he did to Hillary. What he did to Hillary, Hillary did to Hillary. Hillary stuck around.
I'm not going to blame her because I think that she's a victim to an extent.
How many times she?
When they left
the White House, why didn't she leave him?
There are countless examples of women. Look, here's one that's relevant right now. Huma Abedin just let Weiner move back into their apartment.
And so, what does that say about Huma?
It says that she apparently wants him around to spend time with their son, and so women do, and men do this too. To keep families together, they make these decisions, and it's irrational. And I think Hillary's guilty of it too.
So your take on this is that Hillary Clinton stayed in that relationship with President Clinton and Governor Clinton and Citizen Clinton for all that time because of Chelsea.
I think that was part of it. Sure, I do. She was a Midwestern woman where I don't think that this was, divorce was as acceptable as it is today. And I think that entered. Now, was power, the pursuit of power, part of it? No question. But I'm not willing to say that she wasn't a victim to some degree by his philandering. I mean, the guy treated her horribly and was very disrespectful in his behavior. And I'm not going to blame her because I think that she's a victim to an extent. And that maybe that's why she is the way that she is. And she has a very hard, cold exterior because she had to. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt.
You're giving her a painting where the colors don't make sense. Forget about Benghazi. Let's say that she didn't even play a role in it. I can't believe I just said that. But let's get rid of that, because what people are going to say watching this is, what about the 4 victims of Benghazi? Take that completely out. We're talking about marital abuse.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton may have been a victim early on.
Yes.
Okay. But when you look at her history, the people she hung around with, the Zelensky.
Look, I'm saying she's flawed. Yeah.
She is an evil woman. We have a video, Harlan. All right, note to Dennis. We have a video. It's one of the most watched videos, one of the most shared videos, and Dennis Michael Lynch will play it tomorrow, of Hillary Clinton up on stage, and a young black gentleman gets up and asks her a question, something pertaining to Bill Clinton. It wasn't rude. She didn't know she was being recorded. She ripped into that guy like nothing I've ever seen. She is evil. She is fake. She would never be where she is today without Bill Clinton. I think we've seen that firsthand in this election. She has no personality. She has nothing about her that attracts people to her. Bill Clinton has always been her calling card. I'm Bill's wife. I'm Mrs. Clinton. And she took him almost like a draft in a car, a race car driver. She followed, and then eventually took his wind. And to think that she stuck around because of Chelsea Clinton, then why is she still there today?
What does she have to gain from him today? To your point, if there's nothing there, and there's no political office beyond now, take the money and go live a separate life from Bill.
Take the money. You take Bill Clinton out of the equation, she doesn't raise any money.
She doesn't need to.
Bill Clinton,
she's not a viable candidate going forward. Like, there's no office that she can run. Look, her health is in question. There's no question about it. She's getting up there in age. There's nothing to gain from him at this point if there's not something still there.
I am going to, you can put the comments up, Tim. I am going to bet heavily that you will hear her talk about the fact that she will consider running for the presidency in 2020. She's doing everything right now, Harlan, that somebody who wants to run for president is doing. She started a PAC. That's the first thing. All right. She's out there doing her speeches. That's the second thing. She's slamming the existing president, talking about policy and about she's getting in part of this whole resist movement. She is not a woman who has recognized her losses have buried her politically.
That's fine.
She's looking at a Democratic Party who does not have a clear leader. She's looking at a Democratic Party who is thirsty for somebody to be able to beat Donald Trump. She knows when she looks at the charts that she beat him in the general election in terms of getting more votes by millions and millions, illegal voters or not. And she looks at the things that are happening with Trump right now, and she truly believes that when she looks forward, that things are only going to get worse for him, not for better. She will make the argument that I am the only candidate who can absolutely beat him. I beat him already. I just didn't beat him in the right districts with the right electoral votes. We've got to work harder in Wisconsin, harder in Pennsylvania, harder in Michigan, harder in Florida. We can win this. All we need is the reversal of 1 or 2 states, and we've got it. She believes she's there. She keeps Bill Clinton around because Bill Clinton is one thing he does one thing really, really well. He raises a substantial amount of money. And she needs that. She needs him. She needs the husband. Who else is going to marry her? She needs that because that's part of the story. I think she's stuck with him because he's part of the story. Nobody stays with a guy like Bill Clinton, with all the things he's done for the sake of Chelsea Clinton? That's my take.
It's impossible for us to know.
I guess it's opinion. It's opinion. All right, listen, we got to move on to this. Let's get a couple other little things before we dish up on this. We did not expect to talk about this. Let us know what you think. Who do you agree with on this one? Harlan or myself? I got a feeling on this one, Harlan, I'm going to win. If you go to DennisMichaelLynch.com and you hit the submit news button, what do you think? Did she stick by and large or for a good degree for Chelsea, or did she stick completely for the fact that she wanted to one day be president and she needed him as her crutch to get there? Let us know what you think. Tell us. We'll read some of those things tomorrow when we go back into this conversation. One of these days, we'll have to have a marital expert come in here and weigh in on this.
Analyze it? Yeah.
All right. So that said, let's get into something very important here in politics, the Paris Agreement. You want to take it or me?
Sure, I'll set it up.
Yeah.
So this has been, look, the Paris Agreement is in reference to climate change, right? It was probably President Barack Obama's hallmark piece of legislation as it relates to climate. And so I believe I have the numbers here. Apparently 195 countries are signatories of the Paris Agreement. 147 are moving forward with what is entailed by the agreement. They've ratified it and they're moving forward with it. There are only two countries that are not signatories, Nicaragua and Syria. The United States is a signatory. And it was a campaign promise of President Donald Trump that he would pull us out of the Paris Agreement because he contends, and many primarily big companies and small businesses contend that the regulations enforced by the Paris Agreement are driving them out of business. It's driving to higher electricity costs, higher oil prices, etc. And so President Donald Trump ran on this. He said he was going to pull us out of it. He doesn't need Congress's help to pull us out of the Paris Agreement. He can do it pretty much unilaterally. It would take 3 years for us to pull out of it. It came about today that many leading news outlets, including DML Daily, Fox News, and others, are reporting that he will pull out of it in the coming days. But President Donald Trump didn't clearly say on Twitter this morning that he was going to do it. He put up this tweet. Let's see if we can roll it up and pull the comments down. He said, "I will be announcing my decision on the Paris Accord over the next few days. Make America great again." We could split hairs here and try to analyze what he's saying there. If we're thinking that he's going to hold to his campaign promise of pulling us out of this, then I would guess that "Make America Great Again" is a signal that we're going to return to self-rule when it comes to our environmental regulations. But something that I came about just right before we went to broadcast was in 2009. He was one of the signatories in a full-page article or a full-page ad in the New York Times encouraging then President Barack Obama to ratify a climate agreement like the Paris one. So I can see this both ways, and I'll send that to you because I think it's an interesting piece. I can see this both ways. I mean, he has been on both sides of the Paris Agreement. And so, we're going to track it. I mean, this has received overwhelming response from people like, I think we got Sir Richard Branson, the billionaire and the environmental activist and a friend of Barack Obama. He tweeted this. Can we load that up? He said, "Regardless of what governments do, the global momentum stimulated by the Paris Agreement is growing." There was other responses as well from, let's see here, Lisa Bloom, who's a leading Democratic activist. She said in a tweet just this morning that, let's see here, can we put that up? She said, "Only an ignorant psychopath willing to endanger his own grandchildren would pull out of the Paris Agreement." Hugh Hewitt, who's the Republican, formerly a never-Trumper, right? Hugh Hewitt.
He always gave Trump a really hard time.
Hugh Hewitt did come to the president's defense and said, "Bravo to President Donald Trump if he withdraws from the Paris Agreement. Like the Iran deal, both are vast overreaches of executive authority."
Now, there was a big advertisement in the New York Times. Was
so this is from mostly Fortune 500 companies that took out a full-page ad in the New York Times. It was either today or, here we go. It said, "Dear President Trump, as some of the largest companies based in or operating in the United States, we strongly urge you to keep the United States in the Paris Agreement on climate change." They go to list some of those reasons. Among the companies that signed onto this ad were Adobe, Apple, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Gap, Facebook, Google, Hewlett-Packard, Intel, PG&E, which is an energy company, Tiffany's, Unilever, and more. So, it's interesting. I'm a little bit. I really am averse to any sort of regulation imposed on the United States by agreements like the Paris Agreement. I think that we should be able to self-determine what sort of environmental regulations we think are appropriate. And I do believe there should be environmental regulations on water quality, so you don't have these disasters like in Flint, Michigan. I think that there is a place for safety for water quality in our rivers and our oceans, so that seafood isn't polluted. There's a time and place for this. But outsourcing that to an international body is against every fiber in my being.
Yeah. Look, the president has talked about wins. We need to chalk up some wins.
Yeah.
And although I don't think a president should really be playing left and right, I think when you get into the presidency, you have to care for people that didn't vote for you just as much as you care for people who did.
Yeah.
You have to look at problems as a whole, not as right and not as left. However, this is one of those times when the impact on this will hurt jobs. He needs to continue down the path of rebuilding this economy. We need to be strong again. We need to be rich again. We need to be great again. This is one of those things that he promised, that he needs to keep to his promise, and he has to show that he is a man of his word. And this is one of those times when he doesn't need the Congress, he doesn't need the Supreme Court, he doesn't need anything. He just needs his convictions.
Yeah.
And he needs to stick with what he said he would do. I think this will fire up his base. It will energize his base, and all these other companies like Apple and everybody else who wrote their little advertisement in the New York Times, they're going to continue making themselves a gazillions and gazillions of dollars. This is something I think he should and has to do, and why he's kicking the can down the road, I just don't understand. He must have a reason, but he will disappoint. I could see the emails coming in now. He will disappoint a lot of people if he doesn't follow through with this.
What if he thinks it's the right thing to do? What if he's looked at the emissions and he said that this hurts air quality and that impacts people's lives, and he said, we're going to stay the course with the Paris Agreement?
I think he had the opportunity to look at those things long before he actually went to Europe. And I think there's enough evidence out there that says that climate change is not what they try to tout it out to be. I also know that climate change is one way for a lot of these progressives to get a sort of world togetherness, if you will. So this way they can solve a global problem. I don't believe a problem of this kind, if it really exists the way it does, you are ever going to get people to all come on consensus and do what they're going to do. China is going to do what they want to do. And
they've signed on to it, though.
They're going to do what they want to do. You can see. I heard this morning, and this to me is un-American. What I just heard. I was driving in. I heard on Fox News somebody was saying, there are a lot of businesses that say, "Hey, look, just sign on to it," or people who say, "Just sign on to it and stay there, so we have a seat at the table, but don't follow it." To me, that's not what America does. I don't want to sign on to something so I just keep my seat at the table. I don't want to sign on to something that I really don't believe in. I want to sign on to the fact of making America great again. And that's what I did, and that's what these people did. And he said he was going to get us out of it, and I want us to get out of it.
So what he needs to do at this point is, I think that when he rolls this out, he needs to clearly articulate what the positive impacts are of pulling it out, and or what the detrimental impacts are of staying in. Because to this point, I don't think I've heard that since he was running for office. I haven't heard him talk really much about the Paris Agreement at all. And there are 195 countries that are part of this agreement. There are only 2 that are not, Nicaragua and Syria.
Look, you got President.
I'm trying to understand.
Okay, but you got Obama, who is part of spearheading this whole thing together. He talks about climate change. He talks about climate change. He talks about climate change, and then he gets on a damn Learjet. Right. He gets on one of Branson's Learjets.
But this isn't about Obama anymore.
But to a certain degree, it is, because Obama got us into something that he shouldn't have got us into, and so now we've got to get out of it. Okay. And we got to get out of it because I don't believe that there is this problem that they're trying to sell, that there is a problem.
Yeah.
When Bernie Sanders gets up there and they say, what's the biggest problem in the world? And he says climate change, and then says that the reason that ISIS is because climate change, that says to me, I need to be seriously far away from this guy. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to show me any evidence. ISIS is around because of climate change? Please. So I need to see the American people, Harlan, back to work, putting money in their pocket, spending money on Main Street, spending money, putting their money invested in Wall Street. I need America to get back to where it was so it's strong again. Yeah. Before it is we go playing in these sandboxes that we don't need to be in, and we're spending more money on.
Well, I don't agree with what Bernie Sanders said, but I understand where he's coming from. And this is how I'd set it up. Why does radical Islamic terrorism exist in the Middle East? I would contend that it exists because there are economic forces there that lead to mass unemployment, that people are undereducated, they're not receiving the services that they need to get off their feet, to start businesses, to get the economy humming there. And that's their own fault. And he contends that the reason for that is because the weather is so damn harsh there that they can't get industry moving. Now, I don't agree with his premise there, because the Middle East is flush with oil. They're flush with many natural resources that you've seen regimes like Saudi Arabia exploit to enrich their own people. In places where ISIS has risen are countries where that hasn't been the case, where all of the wealth goes to the top 1%, and the rest of them are just fighting amongst each other. So when Bernie Sanders says that climate change is the cause of ISIS, I think he's wrong, but he's saying it's because of economic reasons that they haven't, that they exist.
We're going to get off topic here again a little bit,
yeah.
But I don't agree with your assessment of why it is that radical Islam and terrorists and ISIS have emerged, because there are a lack of jobs and there's a lack of opportunity, et cetera, so forth in the Middle East. We have places here in America where there are a lack of jobs, there are a lack of opportunity, and people have no money. While we don't go around chopping people's heads off.
But some people do go shoot up schools and movie theaters.
But there's a difference between that and literally taking somebody and chopping their head off.
I agree.
And screaming the word Allah. Radical Islam is radical Islam because if you read the last chapter in the Quran, it actually calls for this.
Yeah.
And so there are people who interpret the Quran in the sense that they are actually following out what it is that they're told to do based on their religion. Yeah. So the reason why I think that there is jihad and there is this radical Islam, yes, you can find, and I have made the argument you've made before, that the danger is, and I'm going on a little tangent, I'll be back. When you look at Europe in some of these places where these kids don't have jobs, the unemployment rate is high, poverty is all around them. They don't have a place to go every day. They don't have a place to aspire to.
Yeah.
Okay? Those people are easy to lure in.
Totally.
Okay. But they're still being lured in by somebody else who, by the way, has plenty of money. ISIS has plenty of money. Okay? ISIS is doing it based on Islam, based on their interpretation based on their interpretation of Islam is why they're doing what they're doing. Okay? When you talk about people going into movie theaters and shooting people up, that is usually connected back to somebody who has a mental issue.
And I think that if you're an ISIS fighter and you're going around beheading people in the name of a book, in the name of your God, I believe that that's a mental disorder. I think these people are very sick, and they fall into this cycle of sickness and inhumanity because times are not good there. How many rich people do you see going around the Middle East beheading American journalists? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's these radical, disaffiliated youth that are taken advantage of by older people that want power. That's what this is. That's what this is.
I think you're giving them a very easy out, man.
No.
Yeah,
I'm saying that they're sick in the head, and that they make up these lies and they make up these stories as it relates to the Quran to manipulate their followers. It's evil what they're doing.
Harlan, these people are driven by their religion, not by how much money they do or do not have in their pocket. If you had a radical extremist, a Muslim extremist, and he grabbed you right now, and you said, I think Allah is a piece of crap, he'd say, okay, I'm going to chop your head off. You said, wait a second. My family's very wealthy. Here's $2 million. I don't even know your name. You could go live in bliss for the rest of your life. Those 19 virgins you think you're going to get in heaven, now you get them here. You got all this money. You know what is going to happen? He's going to tell you to keep your money. He's going to chop your head off, and then he's going to take your money. And then he's going to go on to the next one. These people are doing this because they have been sold on this thing called the Quran.
They're indoctrinated.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with their ability to get a job.
But you don't. How many ISIS fighters or how many terrorists do you see shooting up a music venue in Paris that are independently wealthy? It's only people that are poor and have nothing going on in their life that are truly susceptible to this extreme radical Islamic terror. I don't see rich guys driving Ferraris chopping people's heads off. You know what I mean? And there are plenty of Muslims that are very, very wealthy, both in this country and in the Middle East. And I don't see them going off and doing it. It's the vast majority of them that are taken advantage of and radicalized. And I believe that you're right, that they really are true believers. They really believe that what they're doing is in the name of God or Allah.
Of course, so the argument here that we were having, and tomorrow, by the way, I know we're a little all over the place right now.
Yeah.
I think this proves the fact that we don't discuss what we're going to discuss. We are going to do a little special here tomorrow about Ramadan. Going to give you some meaning to it, what it means. Maybe even get Ryan Morrow. I'd like to try to get Ryan Morrow tomorrow. But we will talk about Ramadan, and we will talk about how many people have been killed during Ramadan. This is supposed to be their big holy month. And we will further the debate about what it is that he and I were just talking about. We do have to move on real quick, all right, because we're running out of time here. We are seriously out of time. Kabul, there was a attack this morning. What do we have, 90 people dead so far, Harlan? 300, 400 people injured?
Yeah, but conflicting reports, between 80 and 90 people dead. Okay,
nonetheless, it's a major thing, and it's supposed to be a rather secure area.
A journalist for the BBC was injured. Around 300 people were injured. Several embassies were impacted in Kabul. And so, this is pretty major. I think we've got some of the footage here. It's unfortunately, no one was able to capture any of the explosions, but you can see some of the massive injuries. This must have been a coordinated attack with relatively sophisticated bombs.
Now, keep in mind,
this
happened because those people don't have jobs.
I'm not saying that, but if you give a good middle-class job to somebody, they don't have time. If they're living the dream, they don't have time to be radicalized. They're living their life. They got a family to care about. It's the people that are truly desperate. And I see some of the people are pissed off with me. I don't care, because I believe this. And I'm not going to bend to your will. I'm not going to bend to anybody's will.
No,
because the expectation here is that if you're radicalized, It's because you had too much free time to even think about these things. People with families, people with a dog, people that are living a middle class life with a middle class job, and they've got bills to pay. They don't have time for that crap. It's these young kids that are, whether they're in the Middle East or in the ghettos of Paris or London, it's those guys that are most susceptible. And it's always older radical Islamists that corrupt them.
In San Bernardino,
Yeah.
the guy who killed all those people at a Christmas party, he was employed.
Yeah.
He had good money. Where's your philosophy on that one?
Well, I mean, he was an immigrant, right? I mean, he came to this country, and as I've read about their relationship, I think that they were more coordinated. They were basically a terrorist cell inside of a family, and yes, they had a child, but they were hell bent on executing a terrorist attack. They were corrupted before they even got married.
So what's the difference? Because if we go based on your theory, these people had middle-class jobs. They lived in a very comfortable setting.
Yeah.
They had everything that you would possibly imagine that you would want, and yet that didn't stop them from taking innocent lives in the name of Allah.
I don't think that they had everything that they want. And when you go back and you read their story...
What didn't they have?
They were radicalized before they even got married. He brought his wife over because he was basically an ISIS soldier living in isolation. And he married her in his life because they were kindred spirits. They both were terrorists. They wanted to inflict damage and murder innocent Americans.
So even if you want to say that they were indoctrinized before they wound up having these nice jobs, or he had this nice job and the nice home, then why wouldn't the nice home and the normal job with the good salary that affords him a nice car, etc., why wouldn't that be enough to pull him out of that life?
Look, I can't speak to that individual example.
I can answer.
What is it?
Because it's not about the money. It's about the jihad. It's
You're
about
missing
the
the point.
religion.
You're so focused on the money. What I'm talking about is it's the people that are vulnerable because they have nothing going on in life that are often corrupted, which may be the case in the San Bernardino guy. He may have been corrupted because he had nothing going on. He had nothing to look forward to in life, and so that's why he became basically a suicide fighter. And yes, along the way, did he find a wife and he brought her to the United States? Of course. I mean, those are just the facts of this case. But that doesn't negate the fact that he may have been radicalized because he had nothing going on in the first place. I can't point to one example because there are going to be holes in it. For instance, Osama bin Laden was independently wealthy and he was a Saudi. I mean, but as I said, it's the people that they recruit and that they radicalize that often come from socioeconomics that are depressed. Because they're being sold this lie that the Americans and the Jews are responsible for all of the evil in the world, and that the Quran and Islam provides them the only path out, and that if they fight against the common enemy of the United States and Israel, they get all these virgins on the other side of life.
Yeah, but see, where my concern is with your theory on this, is that you're making the argument why young kids go to drugs and gangs, which I think is significantly different as to why people join terrorist organizations. I would agree if you were making the argument that said Chicago is in the place it's in, where these kids are killing each other every single day because there are no jobs, there are no opportunities, so it's ultimately, how do I survive? And in order to survive, I need money. In order to get money, because I don't want to take the $7 they're going to pay me at McDonald's, I know I can make $500 a day selling dime bags. So that's why I go to that life. And now when I get into that life, I see that that also comes with crime and guns and fighting with other gangs. And they get stuck in that life for the sake that they were pushed into it because of the need to survive for money or whatever it may be. And then they just change. They change, they get hardened or whatever it may be. I do not believe that that is the same thing as the jihadist because I would make the bet that if I took 10 guys in Chicago right now, and I pulled them to the side and said to them, listen to me, I want you to get out of this life. Here's $500,000. Nobody's going to be able to track you. I'm going to give you a brand new name, a brand new life. Take whoever it is in your family you want to go. Come with me. I'm going to take you out of Chicago. I'm going to put you down in Florida. You're going to live in a beautiful lifestyle. Here's $500,000. You're good to go. I'm going to bet that 9, maybe 10 out of the 10 are going to come with me because they really don't want to be there. They got stuck in this lifestyle. They don't want to get shot. They aren't fighting for anything. Hold on, let me finish out. They're not fighting for anything other than their own survival. And now I'm giving them a chance to survive and go somewhere else. If I had 10 jihadists, 10 extremists, and I said to them, I'll give you $500,000. You take a wife, you take your kids, I'm going to move you to America, to South Florida, where you're going to live forever for the rest of your life. Here's $500,000. I think 9 out of the 10, if not 10 out of the 10, are going to chop my head off.
Maybe. I don't know.
So
what about MS-13?
Same
because
thing.
I consider MS-13 to be a near-terrorist organization. But they don't have the ideology that you're talking about, which is radical Islamic terrorism.
They terrorize because of the gang mentality that they have been sucked into.
But it's a brotherhood for them. I mean,
because once you're a gang member or something like that, it becomes, because in their life, a lot of them have absolutely nothing else. And so their brothers, their fraternity, if you will, becomes the only family they know. Okay. That is much different. And you have to remember that most gang crimes are gang members killing gang members. I'm on your turf, you're on my turf. We're both criminals. We're both after the same drugs. But you're not going to sell the drugs to Joey. I am. Get out of my turf. And that's why the killing is. Whereas with a jihadist, you are losing your head, not because you're going to chop off Joey's head and I want to chop off Joey's head, but because you don't believe in the same religion, for the same beliefs, in the same way that I believe.
But these jihadists in ISIS, they kill a ton of Muslims as well.
Because the interpretation of the Quran is two different ways. You can be with a Muslim person who is a good person and who does not believe in the violence that comes at the end of the Quran, that do not believe in those jihadist parts of it, that you believe. They only believe in specific parts of the Quran. These other people don't believe that those are real Muslims. They believe that they're disrespecting the Quran because they're not following it from page 1 to page 1001.
Or they are interpreting page 1 to 1000 differently. That's another thing.
Well, interpretation is interpretation, but if you read the Quran, you have any of the passages of the Quran, it is the most violent thing you'll ever read in your life. And so, to that degree, you had a Muslim who will say, I don't believe I'm going to get 19 virgins, and that's why I don't believe it. Now, when you start to look at the statistics of this, if you take Islam as a whole, and you ask the people, how many of you would actually go through chopping somebody's head off because of your religious beliefs? It becomes a very, very narrow number. It's a very small number. But when you ask how many of you believe that there is justification for that jihad, that number increases. So you don't have people who are willing to carry out the death, but you have people who say, yes, I agree with that death because that's what my religion teaches me. And
they're radicalized too.
In a sense, those people are radicalized. If you were to insert this into your theory, those people right there can't find jobs, don't have anything to aspire to, don't really have anything going on. And I think I would make a bet of almost everything I have that if you were to actually look at those people, that pool, those people have more than you recognize. It's that those people believe so passionately about what that religion stands for and what that Quran speaks to, that's what they believe in. And so,
I agree with you.
I believe that Jesus died on the cross, and I believe he is the Son of God. But I would never chop off your head because you told me Jesus was a this, a this, a this, a this. I may not talk to you again. I may think a little less of you. I may say, why did you insult my religion? I wouldn't do that to your religion. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to chop your head off. These people who are in that group, Harlan, they believe so passionately about what has been taught to them that that drives them more than anything else in the world. It drives them more than money. It drives them more than jobs. It drives them more than happiness. It just drives them. That's their religion. That's their ideology. And that you're not going to strip that from them. And the more that they become radicalized, you don't have to be rich or poor to become radicalized. You just have to be sucked in because you have, to your point, a void in your life. Because here's another thing, and I think this is very important. We'll end it on this because we could talk about this for 19 hours. I don't even know how many more people we lost. Half of our audience. I've spoke about this many times before. I once sat down with Rudy Giuliani, and we spoke about this very topic. And he said to me something that has always stuck with me, and the reason why I know it stuck with me is because I always repeat it. He said, and I think this goes to our conversation, he said to me, we've always been very successful at catching organized crime, criminals, mafia, John Gotti. Because we could get although we would never commit those crimes of stealing a car, killing a body, taking a bet, doing a heist, we can at least figure out why they're doing it and therefore try to plot out how they would do it. And that's why we've always been successful at catching organized crime. The reason why we can't catch jihadists before they actually blow people to smithereens is because we can't get our head into the head of the jihadist who is willing to kill himself. Don't forget that. That's a major part of the equation. Who is willing to kill himself in the name of Allah and in the name of killing you. He is willing to, so as a rational human being, although we can put our mind into the mindset of the MS-13 member, the gang member, the mafia member, the petty crime guy, the bank robbery guy, and the corporate CEO who's going to funnel from the kitty, we can't put ourselves in the mindset of these Islamic crazies, because we don't aspire to die. We don't aspire to jihad. We don't aspire to this Quran. And so that's why we have such a hard time tracking this crap down. And I think that may be, and you know all too well, I have said to you a million times, you should never change from Democrat to Republican. You should stick your guns. Nobody should ever apologize for how they feel. However, in this one case here about this, although I do think that economics can play a role, I don't think it is the overall reason why the ISIS and jihadists and Al-Qaeda and all these other the Koran group and Boko Haram, I don't believe they're all there because they don't have opportunity for jobs and money. I think it's because they really do believe from start to finish all the crazy stuff that is in that book.
The last thing I'll say is that, first of all, Max Lurie, I'm not an atheist. I was raised Christian, Baptist, actually. So I saw that. What I'll say is that, for one, I think I've taken a big step forward in saying something that most Democrats won't say, which is radical Islamic terrorism. And I agree with you that these people are totally brainwashed. The term I used was mentally ill, to believe that killing in the name of Allah is justified. And I'll also say that I stand by my guns by saying that the vast majority of the people that are radicalized are people that have nothing going on in their life, and maybe there are exceptions to that.
I will say that the people who are doing that have religion driving their life. It's driving their life. Although, well, look, we could, like I said, we could talk about this for 500 hours. We've been on for an hour and a half. We have a lot of other things we have to do today. We'll stop at that. Obviously, we're going to we will be talking about this a little bit more tomorrow. I hope that
somebody else just brought up a great point. They're brainwashed from birth. Think about. I mean, that's a big difference between some of these jihadists and someone that's joins MS-13 or one of these gangs in Chicago. Is that for their parents, and that's an important difference. Their parents justify it. They're indoctrinating them from their earliest age. That's all they know. And for most of, I would contend that for a lot of organized and unorganized crime in the streets of the United States, that's not necessarily the case.
Okay. I remember vividly, but I can't remember his name. We've got to track him down.
Yeah.
And you may actually have even been on the panel.
Maybe.
When I had the Newsmax show, I had a guy on who was a Muslim and went over to Christianity because of the violence in the Quran. And the older he got and the more sophisticated his brain worked on its own, he said, I'm not buying into what I've been taught as a kid or a teen or a pre-adult. I'm buying into the fact that now I'm an adult and I understand this stuff completely.
Was he educated?
And I'm out of here.
Was he like an educated guy?
He was an educated guy, yeah, sure.
That's a big difference. A lot of these people in the Middle East, they're not even getting an elementary education. They can't. I mean,
No doubt.
They can't write.
No doubt.
So that socioeconomics and education play a big part in this. And anyway, I don't want to beat the.
Yeah. This is the sort of topic that you can talk about for pretty much forever. So anyway, all right. Well, what do we have? I always get a couple of comments here at the end. Harlan, please read the Quran. Now, Harlan, don't read the Quran. Yeah. If Harlan reads the Quran, I'm afraid that one day I'm going to be sitting in here and be like, Harlan, what do you think we should do today? It's whoo! No, he doesn't have time to read the Quran. It is a huge topic. It's a huge topic, and nobody has figured it out yet. That's why it is the world has so much problems when it comes to this particular religion. Brigitte Gabrielle. I should get Brigitte. I know Brigitte. I've had her on many different times. Never on this before. Maybe I will. I know she does Skype all the time. Okay, so this is such a perfect example of respectful discussion. DML, Harlan, thank you both for expressing your views and learning. Yeah, I mean, Harlan and I are good friends, and we work together. We have differences about opinion, but we don't scream at each other. No. And that's something that's a lot different than what you see on other stuff. I don't believe in the screaming thing. You don't get anywhere. All right, great show today, DML. All right, great debate between you guys. What else we got? That's really it. We've been doing enough today. Okay. Well, anyway, real quick, for those of you who aren't on our alert system, you got to get on it. So basically, it is you take your cell phone, and then you go to your little texty thing, and then you go to the text thing, and you instead of dialing a phone number, you just go 40404. And then when you do that, in the body of the email, you write follow space at Real Dennis Lynch. Ashley, note to you, when we're done, please create that. So this way we could throw that up next time. So it's you 40404, and then it's follow space at Real Dennis Lynch. You should have that in addition to the app, because sometimes, as I've learned, Twitter and the app, they have breakdowns, but the 40404 never breaks down. So that said, if you haven't downloaded the app, you should do so by going to the App Store for iOS or to Google Play and look for the DML app and download it. Make sure you have notifications on. For those of you who continue to donate it to us, we appreciate it in a big way. And I did see some comments before that asked about when it is that The Truth, my show, will be back and when Harlan on the Hill is going to start. And so today, for the rest of the day, although it just went from being rainy to beautifully sunny, I think I'm going to go for a little walk. I haven't done that in a while. But anyhow, going back to what I was saying, we are building the final last aspects of all the show, all the little tiny things that go in and around it. And so, I don't know, it'll be pretty soon that we will have The Truth and Harlan on the Hill in addition to the walk and talks. And that will be that. I'm not going to give you a certain day because I just don't know what the day is. Things change around here often. For instance, we had somebody who was out sick today, and that changed absolutely everything. So because we're small and because we're going on light investment, if you will, we have to do things maybe sometimes a little slower or a little more cautiously than other people do. But at the end of the day, we like the product we're building, and we appreciate you for pitching in. So if you do want to donate, you go to DennisMichaelLynch.com/donate, and that helps us in a big way, whether it's $5 or $5,000. We do appreciate it. And like Harlan has said a million times before, none of that money goes into any of our pockets, certainly doesn't go into mine, and we use it for all development stuff that's here. So that's that. And That's that. That's
Sounds
it.
good.
All right. Until tomorrow, God bless you. God bless our troops. God bless the President of the United States and these United States. And God bless those people who know how to debate and converse with the idea of getting to a solution versus just beating the crap out of each other. And so I guess I'm saying may God bless DML and his good buddy, Harlan Hill. Until tomorrow, see you later. Who has a face only a mother can love. And she's holding a replica of Donald Trump, President Trump's head, all bloodied and chopped off. It was a classless, tasteless move that we are seeing all too often from the left. They continue to push and push the envelope. They do so knowing that they have no price to pay. There are no repercussions. There is never anything that is ever done in the same way that something is done, let's say, to a conservative. I mean, we got somebody we're going to be covering like Sean Hannity, who's simply asking a legitimate question about the death, the very curious death of a DNC staffer. He is now criticized as being fake news and a conspiracy theorist. They're calling for his advertisers to be pulled, and yet this kind of crap, put that picture up, this kind of crap is shown, and what is going to even happen to this woman, if anything, is probably nil. We had just a few weeks ago, late night host Stephen Colbert saying that the President of the United States, his mouth is a holster for the manhood of President Putin. What happened to Colbert? His ratings went up. Nothing happened to him. There is such an unbelievable double standard in this country. Your country, the country that your husbands and wives and fathers and sons and daughters and grandparents fought for. This is what it's turned into. Where if you have values that are deemed conservative, you are bad, you are evil, you need to be censored. If you have values that are liberal and progressive, you are celebrated, you are anointed, you are given everything you need, platforms. But we come up with video clips for Tim, we come up with charts for Ashley, and then my son is continuing to post things, and it all sort of comes together. We come down here a few minutes before we're supposed to start, and before you know it, we're scrambling the last second to do audio tests and to sit here and to fill our glasses with water or coffee, or sometimes, periodically you put vodka in your...
That is fake news.
Whenever he has anti-Trump statements, there's vodka in there.
I don't know.
That's why we blame it on the vodka.
I don't know.
All right, Mother Russia. All right, Mother Russia. There's a vodka in there. You drink the vodka, son, and you're young in the morning. Come on.
I don't know.
My father used to say, put hair on your chest.
Yeah.
So anyway, anyhow, yeah. You could see how much vodka I've drank.
Oh, God.
You know, as a complete side note, before we get into talking about some of this other stuff, a great story. I have to tell you this story. I have to share this story. So yesterday, we're in here. My son, Ashley, and myself, we're here first. We got here very early. We left the house very early. It's a 2-hour ride for us. We got here in an hour and 40 minutes. So we're hanging out. Harlan comes in, and we're already getting ready for the day. And Harlan sits down, and for whatever reason, says, you know, if you run for office, we're not going to be able to use the Facebook page like we use it today for the business. So I'm like, what are you worried about? I said, you know, what are you talking about? Well, you know, we got to get you to run for governor. I said, oh, I'm not going to run for New York State governor. There's no way I could win. I went, well, yeah, we'll move you somewhere else. So Harlan's got me moving. We're discussing Tennessee, West Virginia, Arizona. He's got me moving. So we went home last night, and the whole Lynch family sat down. We're like, is Harlan setting up a coup? Is he trying to rid of me? And then Mary's like, no. I think he's trying to make sure that he would be involved. Oh, it was hysterical. Anyway, so Harlan has me running for office. So today, You know, we were talking about yesterday. I said Merkel would be European in her pants, and now here I am showing my chest hairs.
Yeah.
And Harlan said to me this morning, he's like, you know, you're gonna make it very difficult for me to get you elected. Sorry, Harlan.
Yeah.
Anyway, some people call it personality.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's get into the rock. It seems like we've got our crowd built up here. Okay. First and foremost, let me go down the rundown of what we'll be discussing here today, so this way you know when it is you want to pop in or pop out if you're not going to stay with us the whole time. Today's show, we're going to be covering Kathy Griffin, that classless piece of you-know-what who put up a picture of herself holding a replica of the decapitated, bloodied head of President Trump. We're going to discuss that at length. We're also going to be discussing Sean Hannity. I told you yesterday that I had some interactions with him over the weekend, and yesterday he came out and he put out a very bold statement, which I was very, very pleased to hear. We're going to discuss that. We're going to then go into Sean Spicer and what happened yesterday after 2 weeks of not having any press briefings, what took place during that press briefing, and really how it is that this whole fake news, and you know how much I hate that topic, fake news and the war of media and Trump is only going to get worse. Yesterday was a great example of that. We're then going to move into some stories about Chelsea Clinton and a little back and forth she's having with the president from the Philippines. We're going to go over the Paris Agreement. We're going to go over the terror attack in Kabul and yesterday's ICBM test. We're going to do it in that order for those of you who are curious. So without further delay, let's start off, Ashley and Tim, by putting up the despicable, absolutely despicable picture from Kathy Griffin yesterday. Can we put that up? There we go. Hey, Tim, do me a favor. Turn the comments off on the big screen so this way I can see everything. Thank you. So there you go. So what we have there, leave the picture up there for a second. We have Kathy Griffin, everything you need in order to say whatever it is you want that will try to take down this president and will try to make conservatives moot. That is basically what it's come down to. This is what your family fought for. How pathetic is that? Now, you know it's really bad when somebody like Kathy Griffin, who really doesn't care about anything other than herself, gets a tweet from Chelsea liberal Clinton saying, hey, this has gone too far. Do we have her tweet? This is vile and wrong. It is never funny to joke about killing a president. That is from Chelsea Clinton. Now, that's just one example of an ocean of negative comments this loser received from both sides of the aisle. So last night at about 8 o'clock Eastern Time, she puts out an apology video, which we are going to play for you right now.
I sincerely apologize. I am just now seeing the reaction of these images. I'm a comic. I cross the line. I move the line, then I cross it. I went way too far. The image is too disturbing. I understand how it offends people. It wasn't funny. I get it. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career. I will continue. I asked your forgiveness, taking down the image, going to ask the photographer to take down the image, and I beg for your forgiveness. I went too far. I made a mistake, and I was wrong.
Okay, so I just read one of the comments that were coming through here while we were playing that. Last night, we posted that video and said her sincere apology. We were being tongue-in-cheek when we wrote that, all right? It was not a sincere apology. What it was is, I'm going to lose a lot of money apology. And there was one thing missing in that apology. I just got the alert, too. All right. Let's see. Do you see anything on your, what is it, DML,
Yeah,
right?
I just got it.
The DML? Mm-hmm. DML 10. All right, we're going to let the audience build up here a little bit. From what we know, we're live. And we have another really hard-hitting, good show for you. There we go. First one is Maggie Watt from Idaho. Hey, Maggie. You know, Idaho is one of the states that I've never been to yet. All right, it looks like our audience is starting to build up, and we will give everybody a couple of seconds here to get in. And we have a what I think is going to be another good show for you today. I think yesterday was a good show. We got a lot of compliments from it. And in case you don't notice, what has been happening with the walk-in talks is they're better and more highly produced. Tim and Ashley, I'll kind of I'll tell you what we do, all right, while we're waiting for the audience to build up, because we have a lot of great stuff to talk about today. What we do is we get here every morning, and typically, I'm here first with Ashley and my son, and right after me, Harlan and Tim arrive. Today was different. Harlan was first. Traffic was horrible getting here. But anyway, we get here, and we have an editorial meeting. And my son, who has already been running the website for about an hour and a half, understands what's really hot, what people are enjoying, what they're sharing, what the big stories of the day are. So we sort of see that, and then Harlan and I sit down, and we sit down with the whole team here, and we discuss which topics we should cover, what should be first, what should be second, what should be third. And after we do that, Harlan has this whole chart, and we discuss what it is that we're going to talk about in terms of just the topic itself. I don't know what he's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. We don't know where we stand on things. We try to keep it original in that sense.